exploring BIPV applications. We're delighted that you can join us today. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. In my case, that's the Ngunnawal people, but I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, wherever you're joining from, right around the country. And to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with us today, a special acknowledgement to you and welcome. So today we're using Zoom as our platform. A couple of buttons that I'll just draw your attention to. The first is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, Q&A. If you've got questions in particular, make sure that you use this button, the Q&A button. That'll put all the questions into one place. It'll be easy to moderate and see. And there'll be plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end of the session. We also have a chat screen, and you can actually play along at home. It's actually quite good to have some interactivity and some comments from the audience in the chat. And there'll be SEC staff there standing by to help you with anything you might need in that chat screen. Okay, well, what we might do is acknowledge our sponsor for today's event, GoodWe. And we actually have Apollo from GoodWe joining us shortly, but we thank you, GoodWe, for making this possible and helping bring this information to our audience. We've got a lineup of great speakers. First, we'll hear from Warwick Johnson from Sunwares, then Glenn Morris, and then from Apollo Chai from GoodWe. And as I say, there'll be plenty of chances to ask questions as we go along. Okay, well, with no further ado then, let me go ahead and introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Warwick Johnson, who is the founder and managing director of Sunwares. And for those of you who have been around really for any time at all, would know Warwick as being a genuine guru when it comes to solar statistics, energy storage statistics, understanding the market, what's happening in terms of number of rooftops, what's happening in terms of take up and trends and market intelligence. He's also available as a consultant, so you can reach out to Warwick and commission him to do particular work for you, or to subscribe to some of his great products. Welcome, Warwick, and over to you.
Thanks, John, and hello everybody. Great to be with you here today. It sounds we've got some people from India and Boulder, Colorado, coming in to play, and great to be here presenting with you about BIPV, a topic that's been dear to my heart since being involved in some BIPV projects across from 2005 to 2010. But I wanted to focus less on that and focus on everything that's happening in the solar industry and perhaps why we might need to be using more areas of the homes and roofs. So here we go. Let's move all of that stuff out of the way. You should be able to see my screen now. Is that right? Can you get a thumbs up, Glenn, John?
Lovely and clear. Thanks, Warwick.
Great. Excellent. All right, good. Let's move that out of the way for you as well. Cool. All right, so let's jump in. So firstly, we can't look at where we're going until we look at where we've been and why we actually might be needing BIPV. And one of the reasons is Australia has an outstanding roof solar market, world leading in terms of watts per capita, and of course significant volumes as well, most of which is residential, and Australia's been in the top 10 solar nations for every year that I've been in the solar industry, so long-term player at this level. You can see here some of the figures that we compile on the volumes that have occurred, and if you ignore the grid scale PV, then what you see is 2023 was a year which was very, very close to our peak year of 2021 in most segments, and as a result, significant growth also from 2022. So if we took away the anomaly of COVID and locking people in their homes and forcing them to buy solar power systems, you could almost draw a straight line through there. So we're on a consistent growth trend in terms of capacity, you could say. And residential is certainly still the mainstay of that market, but there is significant growth in commercial too there. In fact, that record year, both at the small scale commercial and also when you count some of the LGCs as well. That's in that slide. I won't go into it in much more detail, but certainly there's a lot of commercial happening at this point in time. One of the key trends that these slides are pointing towards is the ever-increasing average size of systems, of PV systems here. And we see on the left here this chart, which you've probably seen versions of before, the progressive replacement of smaller systems with larger and larger systems. And so now we are moving to that space where 10 to 15 kilowatt systems last year made up or practically the same equivalent volume as 6 to 8 kilowatt systems. A lot of that in there is 10 kilowatt systems and 13 kilowatt systems. And so people are cramming more and more solar power onto every home. That gets easier as you get more efficient panels, of course, but there's still complexities of lots of multiple roof spaces and even for some roofs, running out of space. And what do you do then? Worth noting that battery sizes are also increasing as well, ups and downs. We don't see the same sort of progressive replacement of popular system sizes in batteries as we do with PV, but certainly as the battery market finds its feet, people are making experiments to figure out how can I sell more of these and what's the right amount for a customer. One of the key things that both larger PV systems and larger batteries talks to is the growing amount of electricity demand in the home, and that's even before people really start their electrification journey, which they may be doing with heat pumps, electric vehicles, air conditioners, etc. So people recognise they need larger systems. People are buying larger systems. They're now cheaper, and that helps them to do so. But of course, they're recognising they probably need to store more energy as well. So batteries are going up in size. I am showing this slide just as a marker to say number of dwellings installed in Australia each year is about 180,000 dwellings built, and of that about 113,000 are houses. So that's what's happening each year, is being added to our building stock. But at the same time, we are installing 300,000 new systems each year. Seen there in the orange line, the number of new PV systems installed. And for those of you who are interested, we're currently sitting at 3.7 million installations across the country. Now, some of those are retrofit so they're repowering. That were situations where an existing PV system already was in place, and people are either adding extra panels to an existing inverter, they are extending the system by adding a new inverter, or they're replacing the existing system with a bigger inverter. And that's one of the key trends that we've seen now. 20% of installations in recent years has been repowering an existing system. And you can see there that it varies by state what will happen, how often that's being encountered, and what will happen with the system that pre-exists there. So if you're in Queensland, we're already at the point where it's only 72% of installations that have gone in recently that were greenfield, if you like, didn't already have solar. And of the rest, you're seeing 21% are just replacing existing solar, and 17% adding a system alongside what is already there. Something that varies by state, gets adjusted and impacted whether somebody puts a battery in, etc. But that's one of the key trends that are playing out. And there's a lot of existing systems out there that need to be bigger. And some of the questions are, well, what's the best way of maximizing what you're putting on a roof? Sometimes it is to take out the old technology. Sometimes it's to put some technology alongside. And the question is, when you run out of roof, what do you do? And you might hear some of the solutions that are on offer in that regard. But if we go back just for a sec to note that if we're installing 130,000 new homes being built each year, and we're installing at those rates, we're certainly eating into the existing building stock, even after accounting for repowering. But there is still plenty of building stock left that remains, and plenty of more that is coming online. One thing I wanted to point towards also as an interesting trend, we've all seen panel prices come down markedly. This is a chart of the breakdown of solar power system cost across the 3 different categories, and then its total. And in here, you can see that the reflection of that reducing panel price there in that lower bit, whereas inverters have been comparatively steady. Some of that price decline, however, has been absorbed by increasing labour. And then on top of that, of course, you've got the balance of system costs, et cetera, and overheads. And so what this chart then talks to is that a greater percentage of the cost of a system is in the labour and in the racking. And so questions are, how can you the ways to reduce your price and beat your competition are less so in buying panels at a fraction of a cent less, and more so being more efficient in your installation and with lower component costs. And questions about what you can do about that. Again, building integrated PV may be a solution in certain circumstances to one or both of those factors. And I've got Gracie joining me here in the office, our second dog. Those of you who come to the trade shows know Sunny. We've got Gracie, who's a puppy, just joined me, nosed her way in. All right, the other thing to note is that the Chinese inverter has received a wholesale embrace from the solar industry now these days, so to the point where we call them mainstream inverters. Over 2/3 of the power that's installed is coming from that class of inverters. Worth noting there, also we had a recent award ceremony at the Smart Energy Conference there with John Grimes and myself on stage. Congratulations to GoodWe that they were number 2 in most popular inverter and most popular greatest volume deployed. So that is a key example of that embrace of both, and the same thing applies in panels as well. Yes, even more so, significant embrace of the leading Chinese providers of solar panels. Wanted to turn my attention now to what things will look like for this year, and there's a range of things there. You can read them on your screen that could increase the market for this year, as well as some which may make it contract. So some of those things there just for you to look at and consider. One of those is, though, 7-star housing requirement for new houses, and keep your ears peeled for any sign that the STC threshold gets lifted for commercial PV and or home batteries get subsidised at a federal level. Fingers crossed for both of those measures, both of which could drive things above where we see they're currently looking at, which is slight growth in residential, commercial having another year of healthy but modest growth, and the rest of the market there being steady or just depending upon with solar farms what's already under construction. There are a range, looking beyond that, there's a range of different forecasts and analysis, and they get regularly updated. And this chart is a bit confusing and talks to that. But at different times, analysts have thought this market will, always come down in future years, kind of like the sky is falling. Some years they kind of just go, oh no, let's just assume that the market's going to grow. Right now, the most recent forecasts there are in yellow and purple, and you can see there that one market analyst is predicting record year in 2024 for small scale PV. Another, with a completely different opinion there, which you can probably discount. But the trend is that we are going to have, and lines with my prediction, a bigger year in 2024, possibly stability in 2025, and then outwards beyond that, maybe, unless things change, some tapering off in terms of capacity deployed. But if you look at the AEMO ISP, then you see that their prediction in the back half of the year is a significant increase in volume deployed. Along with that, a lot of batteries that get added to existing PV systems, as well as batteries attached to new PV systems. So there's healthy years ahead in terms of volume deployed. Of course, what that means in terms of for your revenue, etc., is a different story, depending upon the prices of systems. I'm optimistic. I think we're going to actually go on it well and truly exceed any of those forecasts. I think that rooftop solar has been the mainstay of the solar industry and mainstay of our decarbonisation of our electricity supply for some time, and it's going to take quite some time for the grid scale renewables and the transmission to be built to bring that bulk energy supply, which we need, but we need to bridge that gap as well. And I think small scale will be doing that. That's where I'd like to leave it for the moment. But welcome any Q&A, and I'll just introduce Gracie as well, because not so many people have seen her yet. Look forward to seeing her at trade shows soon.
Good on you. Fantastic. Thank you, Warwick. Really, some really interesting observations there. I think there was a question that we'll ask, and we'll come back to Q&A after all the speakers have finished, but someone talking about solar panels and reusing solar panels, so sort of recycling or reuse. And I think it's worth noting that unlike other electronic equipment, a solar panel doesn't stop working. It's not that it stops after 20 years. It just means that there is a reduction in the output compared to the original starting point. And so the opportunity there, but also, Warwick, the opportunity as we electrify everything, and people are putting much greater electricity loads on, heat pump, hot water, induction cooktops, an EV that they want to charge in the garage, on sunshine, then the opportunity there also is presumably a massive one.
Agree, John. And yes, I'll answer that question in the Q&A. There is definitely market for secondhand panels. There's things we can do that are much better than throwing them in the bin or even recycling them into the components. There's reuse opportunities there as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, let's go ahead and introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Apollo Chai from GoodWe. And worth noting that Apollo was the international marketing director of GoodWe for 6 years. And he built up GoodWe to be one of the top global 5 companies in their field and is now responsible for GoodWe's new PV building material division. Apollo, welcome. And we're really interested to hear and learn about the product set that GoodWe has.
Okay, thank you very much, John, for the introduction, and thank you for Warwick's excellent presentation. So, okay, first of all, let me give you a little bit of introduction of why GoodWe enters into the BIPV industry. Basically, GoodWe is famous for its inverter business. We've been in the inverter business for almost 13 years, but now we see a lot of opportunities evolved in those buildings which traditional panels cannot be placed or deployed.
Apollo, just before you go on, I think we've lost your slides, so we're just getting a blank screen there. I'm just
really?
to
okay.
just share those again.
Okay, just give me a second. Is it better?
We can see it, but it's in outline view. That's it. That's perfect. We can see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. Yes. So let's echo with this title the next phase. Basically, GoodWe has a vision to solarize every building. As just described by Warwick, we see a saturation of rooftop is going on in Australia. 50% of the rooftop has already been covered by solar panels. And there are a couple of additions which is turning up these years. So we actually want to give some solutions to the customers who would like to expand their solar system to either charge their EV car or fully charge their battery. Okay, so today I'll talk about the GoodWe Patio solar, residential solar carport, and the shade. So the first product I like to introduce is the Galaxy series, which is particularly designed for lightweight roofing or load-bearing roofs. As you can see from the product, with the typical feature 5.6 kilogram per square meter, which is half of the size of a traditional panel. And it comes with 335 watt capacity. Thanks to its reinforced layer, 1.6 millimeter tempered glass on the top of the panel, it's still hail-proof. It's very important for regions like Queensland, where the hail is quite frequent. And because we witnessed a lot of pool installation causing the water leakage issue for the roofing, no matter whether it's residential or commercial, we come out with this solution without any penetration during the installation. There are 2 installation methods. One is adhesive gluing straight away on the roof top. For example, this is a flat roof. We have the ventilation tubes provided to create a certain gap between the roof space and the panel space. In that case, the air can flow inside and take the heat away to ensure the generation efficiency. On the other side, when there is heavy rain, we can ensure the panel will not be immersed in the water. In terms of clip lock roof or the other roof, we have this kind of clamp fixing. Just use clamps to hold on the ribs of this clip lock. In that case, we create this rapid installation because there is no earthing required as there is no frame. So the whole installation process will be accelerated. There's no mounting structure required, which mounting structure installation occupied 2/3 of the installation time. In that case, in the end, we can achieve 3 minutes per piece rapid installation. Let me show you what we did to prove it, to make it hail-proof and winter-proof. We conducted a third-party test for this hail-proof with 25 millimeter diameter in hail at 23 meters per second hitting on the surface of the panel. So there is no breaks, no micro cracks for the cells. Regarding to the wind, people have the hesitation in terms of the glue straight on the roof. As you can see, this third-party test simulates the wind load at 4,500 megapascal. The wind goes inside of the gap between the panel and the roof, bump it up, but still after a couple of tests, there's no break, even though there is a glass on the top. Yep, here are some installation, real installation in Australia. The first one is installation for a patio roof, which is in Brisbane Rocks Church. As you can see, the original tile roof, there is a leakage with the dark tiles, which they replaced later on. Because the owner is fear of water leakage issue after installation of traditional panels, we gave him the solution to put on the patio. This patio is made up by flat sandwich panels. So we put ventilation tubes underneath and glue straight away on the rooftop. And this is another case for a typical tin roof sheet, corrugated roof. As you can see, there is no mounting structures required. We just glue straight on these ribs of the patio. As you may already aware, there is existing 6.6 kilowatt system on the rooftop. The reason why he liked to expand the system is he replaced his old hot water boiler to a new electrical boiler. The bill rises significantly after that. Because there's no other suitable roofs, and he doesn't want to sacrifice a generation using the south face roof, we proposed him to use this north face patios. And there's no penetration, which means there's no water leakage concerns for the owner. As you can see, all the junction box and MC cables, they are at the back of the sheet, and it goes to the conduit, make a daisy chain zigzag to the end of the roof, which is pretty straightforward. The total installation time is less than 1 hour for a 6 kilowatt system, where normally it takes 2 to 3 hours to do the job for a traditional rooftop. Another typical installation is on a tiny house roof. As you may aware, Australia is suffering a huge rental and housing crisis these days. A lot of house owners, they use their yard to put a granite flat or tiny house at the back and use like Airbnb or rental purpose. But because these kind of roofs, most of them are also tin roof sheets, and some of the supplier of tiny house or granite flat, they don't give you a warranty if you penetrate the roof. So this is a typical case. We just glue straight on the ventilation tubes to go across these ribs and have the panels on the top of it. There's no penetration. All the cables, they go side of the house to generate a standard-alone solar system. Of course, commercial application is also widely applied for our products. This is a Sydney L-spec aluminum 100 kilowatt system where the rooftop is structurally poor. There are some other samples in Brisbane. As you can see, all of them, this is a user clamp because it's a clip lock roof, and this one is just glued straight on the ribs of the roof. In Canberra. So that's pretty wide application for this kind of lightweight panels. So another concept I like to introduce here is Polaris, which we designed for solar carport and shade. Different with Galaxy, it's not lightweight panel. It weighs 32 kilogram with 550 watts. The efficiency is the same as traditional panels, but it with waterproof structure built inside of the frame. So compared with traditional panels, if you want to make a waterproof roof, it is required to have this kind of open water drainage built in. The problem with this open water drainage is, in the long run, the leaves, dirt, and branches drop from the trees will be accumulated inside of a chamber. And in the end of the day, the water will come out and leak to the ground. But for our products, as you can see, it's like a two-shaped design. In that case, even there is water going inside of the seam, it goes to the chamber. And thanks to this towel type installation, each of them, they step on each other. So in that case, the water comes from the top of the panel and will drop to the second layer of the panel all the way down to the bottom. Meanwhile, we simplified the total installation process. We had two installation methods. First one is a clamp on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is hoop. Hoop is most commonly used because it just requires this kind of U-shaped hoop and just put this kind of components on the frame and screw, tighten it, that's down. Even for the replacement will be easy. Screw off, take the U-shape out, slide back of one panel, slide in the new panel, and screw back all the screws. That's down. Fast installation as well. In order to prevent the side rain goes into the panels, we even had this kind of special waterproof strip design. Also have the cover plate to ensure there's nothing can be stuck in the seam. Because GoodWe's core business is solar inverter batteries, and we also have the EV charger products, combined with Polaris Carport panels, we are able to have an entire one-stop solar EV charger storage carport solution to the customer. So in that case, in the daytime, the panel generate power that goes into the inverter and saving the battery. People come back from work at night, you can use the battery to charge the car. Meanwhile, there's other applications like a solar shade, especially for new build home. If they want to add a shade, they can even think about to add a solar shade directly. As you can see, these hoops go under the purling like this, and it is fully waterproof. Of course, in order to increase the aesthetics, we can have a thick cover underneath of the hoop just to cover all the cables, make it clean and tidy. There are other applications or the different kind of design, but it's all modular design. So different application scenario with Polaris waterproof is much easier to install and create solar generation at the same time. Yep, so that's also a carport application. The carport can be residential, also can be commercial. Basically, this is the all-in-one real installation in Sydney. As you can see, we have the EV charger on the pole and also inverter battery mount on the pole. Compared with traditional solar panel carport, it may have the wiring exposed outside, but for this, all the wiring goes to the pole. So GoodWe is able to provide the full structures from the poles to the purlins, and with the cables all goes inside of the structure to really create a risk-free solar carport. In terms of residential, GoodWe made a modular design together with our partner, and it is for the residential end user, they can choose, depends on their preference, have T shape, H shape, and a Y shape. Also, because it's modular design, it will be easily to expand to 2 carports in portrait or in landscape. Yes, so with GoodWe enter into BIPV, we are able to provide a one-stop solution and a service to all the customers. Even there is one component have issues, just give GoodWe a call. Our service will take care of everything instead of facing ball kicking between 2 different suppliers. And we'd like to really solarize every building. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Apollo. Really interesting. I think this movement towards a single solution provider that can actually provide an integrated solution, which includes the engineering as well as the power generation, all in kind of a turnkey solution as a single provider, is a really interesting development in our industry, and probably speaks to kind of a maturing of the industry as well. So, Apollo, there has been a number of questions that have come in, specific questions about your products. I'm really keen to get to those, but maybe we might go ahead first while we do that and just encourage others to put their questions into the Q&A box as we go along, is just to hear from Glenn Morris. So Glenn Morris, really great to have Glenn on the show today. Glenn's actually been installing both on-grid and off-grid systems for over 30 years, and has actually lived off-grid for almost all of that time. In fact, longer, 33 years, actually living with off-grid solutions. He currently runs Smart Energy Lab in the Yarra Valley, where he does practical application and testing of a whole range of products and creates some absolutely fantastic content. So welcome, Glenn. Really glad to be here and keen to hear what you've got to say today.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. And thank you, Apollo. That was a really interesting presentation. So I guess this could almost be a little bit of a humorous session here, because what I've done is I've used AI just to kind of hallucinate and come up with some sort of options for where can you put solar on a home. So excuse some of the slightly strange looking roofs here, but from a serious note, I'm really actually wanting to focus on some of the technical requirements that you need to meet when installing solar. So just checking that you can see my slide. We can, Glenn, loud and clear. And great. Yeah, it's always that moment of uncertainty when you hit share and it's actually your desktop. Yeah, so look, can you overhang solar panels over an open area? Now, John, before the session started, said that's going to flap in the wind. Well, yes, it is. But there are engineered solutions that can be mounted in very interesting ways. But this is not using standard products. You'd have to use products that have got engineering for this kind of approach. So overhanging a roof is allowed, but it has to be a certified engineered design. Now, GoodWe already have a whole bunch of those for things like carports. If you think about it, some of those carports that you saw that Apollo just showed are really just floating panels with sufficiently strong struts. How about a privacy wall? Now, putting panels vertical might seem totally wrong, but a wooden wall generates no power at all. A solar panel wall does generate power, depending on which orientation it is. And, it can be quite aesthetically pleasing. I mean, there are panels which are designed just to look great. So using them as a privacy wall that's rated for hail and wind loads, and it generates electricity. So that's a pretty interesting approach. Personally, I've actually used solar panels for lots of things, for pergolas, for carports. I haven't yet built a solar fence, but been thinking about that one. So an obvious one is a pergola. You're getting 2 benefits here, which is shade from the hot Australian sun, free electricity, and it can look really great. Particularly some of the glass modules which filtered light through, so you're getting that little bit of light so you don't feel like you're in a dark shadow, but not the intense heat of a open roof. So solar pergolas. Of course, you'd need to consider level of waterproofing, like you just saw the solutions from GoodWe that Apollo demonstrated, so that you're not getting drip lines through the gaps in your panels, which actually I've done by mistake. Put some panels up for a carport, push them together, and what do you know, drips come through that little gap. So I should have used the GoodWe panel system. Solar sidings, basically the side of buildings. Once again, it doesn't necessarily work as well as an inclined array, but it certainly works more than a wooden wall or a brick wall. So finding locations that you can put solar panels other than just on a roof, because we are running out of roofs. As Warwick introduced, we're putting more panels on roofs than the houses being built. So we are running out of roofs. And so coming up with interesting ways and novel ideas to put solar onto a building. Now, don't forget the kids. They might like to have a few solar panels on their playhouse. I know it's a bit of a fun one, but this could even be, I saw a question in the chat, what about second-hand panels? This might well be an application for some of those second use or second life panels. And I did say solar fences, they are a thing. Solar fences can be installed, but there are a few caveats. Now, in Australia, we have a standard for PV arrays called ASNZS 5033. And since the update, the 2021 edition came out, it said that you have to have restricted access to all of the DC parts of a PV array up to the disconnection point. And that includes the cables behind the panels. Now, what is restricted access? Basically, up in the air on a roof is considered restricted access. But once you put panels at ground level, people can walk up to them and touch them. So you'd have to encase all of the cabling in a way to make it safe. Remember, it's likely to be an electrical system with hazardous voltages in those cables, so you'd need to protect them the same way that you would any AC wiring at that sort of location. And of course, the carport. We've already had lots of examples of this one, but it's got a double benefit because chances are that electric vehicles are going to turn up at your place one day and you're going to need more cheap electricity to charge them. So why not do the lovely combo of protecting your car from the sun and also generating some free electricity for it. So lastly, I just wanted to give a few regulatory considerations in terms of system sizing. Now, Warwick was showing how systems are getting bigger and bigger, it's particularly in the residential market, but there are DNSP limits on AC power injected into their networks, and that varies from state to state and from utility to utility. So you need to check with your installer what is the maximum AC capacity you can connect. But one of the good things is that you can actually put more solar on an inverter than its AC power rating, so that it's generating, even on overcast days, a healthy amount of energy. Of course, roof space is one of the big considerations, but don't rule out those roofs you think are no good. For instance, I've heard many people saying that it's not worth putting panels on the south side of your roof because there's no sun. Well, actually, south-facing array in Brisbane is the same as a north-facing array in Melbourne. There you go, on an annual average, at about 23-degree incline. So, south works. In fact, like many options, solar panels anywhere are better than none. So don't rule out those spaces. Of course, you could have some non-grid connected solar, such as direct water heating. So there are systems and even pool heating and air conditioning systems that are not grid connected. So that's a way of avoiding the DNSP restrictions on the amount of AC power that you can connect to the network. And lastly, of course, energy storage. That can often be a benefit, particularly if you've overpowered your inverter. So overpowering sounds wrong. It just means that you've got more peak PV power than the AC output of the inverter. But most hybrid inverters can also charge batteries while they're inverting at the same time. So they're sending 5 kilowatts into your battery and 5 kilowatts AC power out to your home. So energy storage can give you that extra boost. So there you go, a little summary of some of the options of where you can put solar panels.
Fantastic, Glenn. Thank you for that. Very, very interesting. A lot of questions coming through and a lot of discussion happening. I might just, first of all, just look to Apollo. Apollo, I think that was really interesting. You saw the lightweight panels at 5.6 kilograms per square meter. How does that compare with a traditional silicon panel? What sort of weight are they coming in at?
Yeah, so for traditional panels, especially the most popular 440-watt panel now, roughly weighs 21 to 23 kilogram in total. While our panel, 335 watt, even though the capacity is smaller, but it only weighs 9.6 kilogram per panel, which is even less than half of the traditional panel weight.
It's interesting. I know, Glenn, I hear stories, particularly from commercial applications, where, people have not been able to put a commercial system on because the roof is just not rated to hold the weight of that additional structure. Can you provide comment on that?
Yeah, indeed. That is one of the big advantages of these new lightweight panels like GoodWe make. They can be engineered for roofs which really only designed to support themselves. Structured integrated panels, for instance, like on cool rooms, and some modern commercial buildings use them. So, yeah, they solve that problem.
The other thing that I really enjoyed, Apollo, was your little video showing the flexing of the panels under wind loading, and it kind of answered my question and my comment, Glenn, beforehand to say, "Gee, it's going to flex, right?" But if it's designed to flex and it meets the engineering, well, presumably that's a positive thing.
Yes or no? Thank you, John. It's a good question, by the way. Basically, we are not really called flexible panels because of the glass on the top. However, it has certain flexibility just during the installation and the carrying. This kind of flexibility ensure the panel does not break. But end to end, it can only have 5 to 6 degree bend over.
Tremendous. Apollo, another one for you. So Keith's just asking, do the panels work with all types of inverters, or do you need to use the GoodWe brand?
Not necessarily compatible with all the inverters.
So it is compatible with all of the
That's
other
right.
inverters.
Exactly
okay.
right.
So it's just it's an input like any other solar panel, basically.
True.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, okay, fantastic. Donald's raised the question. I don't know, Warwick, if you wanted to just touch on this, but the problem of heritage listing in some areas, particularly inner city areas, and what the restrictions are for solar around that. Have you come across that before? And what's your advice?
I've certainly heard of it being a problem, but I don't have any easy solutions there. How about yourself, Glenn?
Yeah, I've been tripped up by that one with a few jobs. Had to put it on the back of the house where you can't see it from the street. So you do have to comply with local regulations, including heritage listing.
No, that's great.
Basically, GoodWe has a solution here, especially for the tile roofs. I didn't introduce here, which is a solar tile. It can replace the traditional tile on the roof, but keep the existing aesthetics of the roof. In that case, you don't see any change of the house and generating electricity at the same time.
That's really fantastic. So you've got that in your product lineup now.
Exactly, that's right.
Yeah, fantastic. A great option for people. Rob was asking about how do you go about moving a solar carport? Apollo, can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for taking off the panels are easy. Basically just screw off, take those coops away and lift the panels one by one. The only thing is the structure, because if the structure is concrete straight on the ground, will be difficult. But if it's bolt in, then just bolt them out, will be easier to take. However, I think the labor cost is still need to take into consideration.
Hey, let me throw a really contentious issue on the table, and that is the issue of apartments, strata blocks, and kind of more dense living arrangements. This seems to be an issue that just comes up again and again in terms of problems around installation of solar, problems around installation of EV charging. The whole issue of, common area access power, for example, being used by a EV owner to charge their car. Really keen to get your thoughts, Warwick and Glenn, on that issue.
Well, I'll go first. So, yes, it is a hot topic, particularly because there is a lot of government incentives or speaking about government incentives towards helping renters and apartment buildings get more solar. But there are, unfortunately, some regulatory hurdles that have tripped up a few players. And I think it's just a matter of them adjusting their products to suit our new standard 4777 Part 1, which is being revised and will be published probably later this year. So hopefully they'll solve that problem, and we'll see apartment sharing of solar a thing again.
Glenn, sorry, go ahead, Warwick.
I'll just add to say that one of the trends we've noted last year as a trend was the left behind parts of the market were starting to get addressed by government, etc. So that includes social housing, it includes renters, those parts and apartments. That's a definitely consideration for the governments, and so I expect to see that trend continue.
Look, a shout out to Smart Energy Council member Allume, ALLUME. Allume actually have a technical solution where they'll put a large solar array onto common property, and then they'll actually wire, the access to that to every single individual apartment in the apartment block. People can choose to access that and get a proportionate saving. So if there's a big array and there's 10 people, it's shared between 10 people and it's shared equally by the end of the month. If it's between 20 people, it's between 20 people. But there's no obligation to actually connect up to it. So it leaves the apartment owner with total freedom of choice as to whether they want to participate or not. But those who do want to participate can actually access that. That's a product available today. I think it's really innovative. And so if people are interested in that, just to shout out, have a quick look at Allume and the work they're doing there. I think EV charging is going to be the other big issue. And I think that's probably going to require some less technical innovation, because technically, it's reasonably easy to put forward, but a business case innovation, a financing innovation, that means that there's very little risk for owners that do that. So shout out to anybody who might be in that ecosystem. If we're not aware of what you're doing, reach out to us. We'd love to learn more about and offer that as solutions to governments, communities, and more. Apollo, coming back to you, Ragnugan actually makes a good point that there may be applications for this type of technology in India. And people might be aware that the Smart Energy Council is actually working with the National Solar Energy Federation of India, NASEFI, and the Indian government, because India is about to actually deploy and set up on deploying 36 gigawatts of rooftop solar in the next couple of years, and it's really coming from a very low base. So we're actually sending our trainer, Jeff Bragg, across to India to actually have a look at how we can apply the lessons that we've learnt from our really strong standards process, our really strong training process, to put in place some just-in-time training for markets, emerging markets like India, where they can learn from the benefit of our experience. But we don't have to deliver a Rolls-Royce solution. A kind of a just-in-time or fit-for-purpose solution is going to be the way to go. So just to let people know, Apollo, do you sell in India? Have you got routes into India?
Yeah, we sell wireless inverters in India, especially we partner with Tata. We are the major supplier of the solar inverter for Tata Power. The only thing for the BIPV is you probably know Indian government has anti-dumping issues against the Chinese panels. So that's the major concern here. But I do witness the BIPV market is starting in India. I know some of the like Wari or other companies, they start to launch the BIPV products in the Indian market.
The other thing, just if you give people a sense of, I think Brian's interested to know a little bit more is kind of a cost comparison between kind of these lightweight panels that might be used, or in fact the waterproof panels that might be used on a patio roof, versus kind of what currently happens. So I think that question is not well phrased, Apollo. Let me give you a bit more context. So I think there are two elements for this. One is the cost of the panel, A versus B, but also the concept that if you're buying the solar panels and they are your roof, then you don't need to buy a roof, right? So it kind of displaces the cost of actually having a roof. So can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, well, basically we are talking with Lysat. You probably know Lysat is the biggest rooftops like solar, the Patio roof supply in Australia. So LiSAT, according to the analysis, if put the LiSAT roof and adding panels on it, will be roughly 10% or 15% higher. Just put a panel straight away as a roof.
Right. Okay. Go ahead, Warwick.
I think my observation related to another question there, which was how does the costing compare for solar car parks versus rooftop? And it goes to similar analysis of roof tiles versus adding solar later. Even what Glenn was saying, a vertical wall produces more energy if it's a solar panel than if it's made of wood. We've found in some of our assessments, including the noise wall, that sometimes actually if vertically mounted solar panels is much more cost effective than doing angled solar panels if your objective is to get something high in the air. Depends upon the energy generation that you need, etc. But the other aspect there was with the solar car parks versus rooftop, and we've seen analysis. Obviously, if you just put panels on a roof, you've already got a structure there. You're not paying for a structure. It's going to be a lot cheaper than paying for the structure of a carport, then putting panels on it. But we've seen assessments done that show that if you are going to put a shading device out for like commercial car parks, supermarkets, etc., you're going to put some kind of material up anyway that needs a structure, and you're going to put solar panel on a roof, that there's a marginal cost kind of consideration, etc. It actually comes out or can come out in a favour of solar carports if you're going to do both anyway. And part of the reason there is because you can go for, particularly if you're doing EV chargers, you can go for EV chargers that don't need to be so weatherproof. So it's complex. It's something you need to look at in each individual case, but often there's significant benefits that come from integration.
Look, I think that's a really good point, Warwick, that installers need a toolbox of potential solutions that they can deploy, because you don't want to just go to a job, secure a potential sale, and then just not have the right tool to kind of fit that need. And then Apollo, I think there's more work to be done in terms of really educating ourselves collectively about some of the case studies to say, well, this particular, customer had the option of putting up just a new patio. They chose this other option. What was kind of a detailed breakdown on that? And of course, the other thing is that if you put up a regular patio, there's never a payback on a regular patio. If you put up a solar patio, actually, you could find the patio pays for itself over time. So, these are important considerations. I think we all need to get better at kind of being fluent in the language of, innovative applications for solar.
Yeah, very good points.
Stephen's asking about, does GoodWe have a tracking mounting system or solution available?
Not really. I'm afraid we don't have that.
No, okay. Another question that people are asking is, okay, if you've glued the panels to the roof, how do you go about actually servicing a panel if you need to replace one from the array?
Yeah, that's frequently asked by our customer as well. So there are two situations. If for the flat roof, there is a ventilation tube underneath, which is made by rubber. It's a solar rubber. So not like traditional rubber will be crystallized in the long run under strong sun exposure. But this kind of rubber, you just use a knife to cut it off and lift the panels, put a new one adjacent to the existing rubber place, then that's done. Regarding to the carbon roof, or let's say the corrugated roof, which glue straight away on the ribs, we need a chainsaw just to peel them off one by one and lift up and place a new one underneath, on the ribs.
For clarification, when you say chainsaw, I think of something that I cut a tree down with. Are you referring to something different?
That's just, that's like a rope. Yeah, sorry, that's a rope saw.
Right. Okay. And so, yep, I understand. Got the picture. Sirhan is asking whether GoodWe has a integrated battery and inverter solution.
It's all in one solution. Yes, we do have this, but not available in Australia yet.
Okay. Richard's asking, and Glenn and Warwick, can you get your view on this? But the issue of reflectability, right? So in some installations, where you might be actually creating a glare impact on neighbouring properties. Have you come across this before? And what do we need to be thinking about when we're doing installations like that?
Yeah, happy to take this one. I actually had this question. I installed a system airside at Melbourne Airport, and the airport authority said if there are any complaints from pilots, you'll have to remove it. It turns out that solar panels have an anti-glare coating because you don't want to lose photons, and so they're actually much better than glass. They don't reflect light; they absorb it onto the solar cells. So, glare is generally not a problem. Maybe if you over-enthusiastically clean your panels with an abrasive and take that anti-reflective coating off, then you might get glare.
We found similar, there was requirements for studies on the Colder interchange, the freeway noise wall. And what they found there, I think similar to what they find with airport glare studies, is it's like the sun angles when you're going to get glare, you've got the sun in your eyes anyway, so it doesn't provide anything worse than what it already is. I guess you could get some potentially reflectivity into your neighbour to consider, as with any glass surface. Though I guess it would be the observation. Though, I don't know if you ever drive behind those utes that have got those flat glass backs, and they bounce right back at you and blind you. I think it's more of a concern and a nuisance, but yeah.
Can I just add a few here? In Europe, we actually have a product which is balcony solar. People just, especially the apartment householder, they put the balcony solar on the balcony, but it may create the reflection, right? For our products, we have the anti-glare coating on top of it. There is no such glare issue as Warwick and Glenn mentioned. We do have this technology.
Hey, I'm keen to come to each of our presenters in turn, just to leave us with a final thought or takeaway from today's session. So let me give you fair warning that that's sort of going to come. But I think today's conversation has been really great. In terms of integrated solutions, innovative applications, new technology, which is opening up more possibilities and opportunities. And the need to solve problems not just physically but also business problems around units and apartments, that sort of thing. I think has been a really, really interesting sort of discussion. Warwick, let me come to you first, and just for a closing comment or remark or a takeaway you're keen to emphasise in today's session.
I think this is the area where the innovative applications can solve some challenges which are faced broadly by the industry. But I always like to take it back to the lens of solar retailers and think this is the way to do something different. This is the way to therefore not just be competing against everybody and anybody who can slap panels up. And so that's an opportunity to stand apart. Different is better than better.
I reckon that's a great observation, Apollo.
Yeah. So basically, I fully agree with Warwick regarding to this point. The BIPV today, I only show which is for the rooftop, but there's multiple applications. We mentioned for the apartments, for the tiny house. So I believe there is still a long way to go, and we can see more different solar application in the future.
Glenn, I'll come to you, but a takeaway that I'm taking away from your talk is PV for cubby houses. I reckon that's a great one. But keen to hear your final thoughts.
Yeah, look, I've been experimenting with BIPV in a DIY manner here at the lab, and it hasn't been very successful because I haven't used products that were designed for it. But now I'm excited because we've got products like the GoodWe make, which have integrated drains, for instance, so you don't get leaks coming through along the joins. So, yeah, I think BIPV's come of age, and there are so many solutions there, whether it's lightweight panels or carports or patios, they're all very doable.
That's great. Finally, I'd like to thank all of our presenters, Glenn, Warwick and Apollo, but in particular GoodWe for sponsoring today's event and making this type of format of information available to everyone. So really appreciate you coming along. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the panelists, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Smart Energy webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.